Someone you've been carrying in your heart is lying awake right now, replaying everything. They're scrolling through old messages at 1:43 a.m., staring at photos they thought they'd deleted, and feeling something they weren't prepared for. The full weight of what you actually meant to them. Not the surface level "I miss you" kind of missing. The bone-deep realization that they had something rare, something real, something irreplaceable, and they didn't recognize it while they had it. Right now, in this very moment, they're experiencing a shift that's keeping them up at night, making them distracted during the day, causing them to see you in a completely different light. If your spirit just responded to what I said, if something in you stirred and said, "Yes, that's them," beloved, this message is for you. If you felt that leap in your chest when I started speaking, if you've been sensing something shifting but couldn't quite name it, you're not imagining this. What you've been picking up on in your spirit, that's real. I'm going to help you understand what's actually happening right now in their inner world. Why this realization is hitting them now after all this time, and most importantly, what this means for you, because here's the thing. While they're finally seeing what you meant to them, something profound has changed in you. And that change, that's the game changer. By the end of our time together, you're going to have clarity about what's unfolding in their heart. You're going to understand why this shift is happening at this exact moment. And you're going to see how the growth that's happened in you has completely transformed the dynamic. You're going to walk away with peace about the timing, wisdom about how to move forward, and a deeper understanding of what all of this really means. And around minute 35, I'm going to share the revelation that ties everything together, the insight about what's really happening beneath all of this surface-level realization. It's going to make you see this entire season differently. It's going to give you hope, but not the desperate kind. The grounded kind. The kind that comes from understanding what's truly at work here. Welcome, everyone. Whether this is your first time here or you've been walking this journey with me through every video, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you to those who've supported with super thanks. It means the world and helps me continue creating content for our community. If others feel led, I'm grateful. But please, no pressure at all. You being here is enough. Now let's dive into what's really happening. So let me start by painting the picture of what's actually going on in their world right now. Because what you're sensing, it's absolutely real. And it's more significant than you might realize. Right now, the person you've been thinking about is moving through their days, and you keep showing up. Not in the way you'd expect, not in some dramatic movie moment kind of way. It's happening in the quiet spaces. They're pouring their morning coffee, and suddenly they remember how you used to know exactly how they took it. They're driving home from work, and a song comes on. Not even your song, just something with a certain melody. And their chest tightens. They're lying in bed at 11:47 p.m., staring at the ceiling, and their mind is replaying moments they thought they'd moved past. Here's what's specific about this. They're remembering the details they overlooked. The way you showed up when they were stressed about that work presentation. How you remembered their mom's birthday when they forgot it themselves. The specific thing you said during that conversation in your car that made them feel genuinely seen. And it's not just nostalgia, it's hitting different now. There's a heaviness to it, like their heart is trying to tell them something they weren't ready to hear before. They'll be in the middle of a conversation with someone new, and they catch themselves making comparisons. You would have laughed at that joke. You would have noticed that detail. You would have cared about this, and every comparison is showing them what they didn't value in real time. Their chest feels heavy in a way they can't fully explain to anyone. Because how do you tell someone you're grieving something you chose to walk away from? I've watched this pattern enough times to know when someone starts experiencing you in your absence more than they appreciated you in your presence, something significant is shifting. Here's what's really happening. This isn't just them being sentimental or going through a phase of missing you. This is their soul doing something important. When someone begins to feel your absence as a physical weight, when they start measuring every interaction against how you used to show up, When the reality of life without you becomes uncomfortable in a way that disrupts their peace, that's their heart, showing them what real love actually looked like. See, sometimes we don't recognize treasure while we're holding it. We get familiar. We get comfortable. We start thinking the way someone loves us is just how love is, not realizing it's actually how they love, uniquely, specifically, intentionally. And when that particular kind of love is gone, that's when the comparison starts. Because suddenly the standard has changed. You became the standard. What I've noticed in situations like this is that the realization usually comes in waves. First, they miss the surface things, your presence, your attention, your availability. But then it deepens. They start missing how you saw them, how you knew them, how you loved them in ways that were specific to who they are. That second wave? That's what's hitting them right now. And it's uncomfortable because it comes with a question they're not sure they want to answer. Did I mess up the best thing I had? I want to be clear. This realization doesn't guarantee a specific outcome, but it does mean something real is shifting. Their heart is doing the work it needed to do. And that's significant regardless of where it leads. Now, some of you are thinking, but how do I know this is actually about my situation? What if I'm just hoping this applies to me? Let me speak directly to that doubt. If this message found you, if something in your spirit responded the moment I started describing what they're experiencing, if you've been feeling a pull to pray for this person lately, or you can't shake them from your thoughts, even though you've tried, that's not coincidence. Beloved, you've probably been feeling restless, like something is moving but you can't see it yet. You might have been waking up at odd hours thinking about them. You might have felt prompted to send a message but stopped yourself. You might have had dreams about them that felt more like visitations than random, subconscious processing. Those aren't signs you're obsessed or stuck. Those are signs your spirit is picking up on a shift that's happening in the spiritual realm before it manifests in the natural. If you're here, there's a reason. Trust that. So why is this happening now? Why not 6 months ago? Why not when you were still trying to make it work? Here's what I've seen. Certain realizations can only come through contrast. Sometimes people need to experience life without something before they can truly value what it was. When you were together, they were measuring you against some imaginary standard they'd created, maybe from past relationships, maybe from movies and songs, maybe from their own unhealed places. But now, though they're measuring everything else against you, and that flip in perspective, that only comes with distance and time. There's also something happening in them individually. Maybe they've grown in some way, went through something that matured them, faced something that humbled them, experienced something that opened their eyes. Sometimes people need their own journey before they can recognize what was real. They needed to become a different version of themselves before they could see clearly what the old version of them couldn't appreciate. And here's the spiritual component. There are seasons for things. Seasons for planting, seasons for waiting, seasons for harvest. I sense for many of you, there's been a season of waiting, a season where it felt like nothing was moving, nothing was changing. But seasons shift, and what you're sensing right now, that's the atmosphere changing. That's the temperature dropping before the rain comes. That's movement in the spiritual realm that's about to become visible in the natural realm. The timing isn't random, beloved. It never is. I know this might feel almost too specific, like, is this really happening to the person I'm thinking about? Stay with me. What I'm about to share next will help you understand why your spirit has been so unsettled lately, why you haven't been able to fully move on, even though you've tried. We're just scratching the surface here. Because what I've described so far, that's only what's happening in their conscious awareness. Wait until you see what's happening in the layers. Beneath, the places even they don't have words for yet. Now let me show you what's unfolding in the dimensions. They're not even consciously aware of themselves. Here's what's becoming crystal clear to them. Even if they can't fully articulate it yet, the way you loved them was different, not just in degree, but in kind. They're starting to understand that you didn't just love them, you saw them. You paid attention to the details. You remembered the things that mattered. You showed up consistently. not just when it was convenient or exciting. Let me get hyper-specific about what this looks like. They're in conversations with new people, and they catch themselves thinking, if this was them, they would have picked up on the fact that I'm not okay right now just from my tone, or they're having a hard day, and they reach for their phone to text you before remembering they can't anymore. Or someone asks them about their day, and they give the surface answer, and they feel the absence of someone who would have asked the follow-up question, who would have read between the lines, who would have known what they really meant. Every interaction with others has become a mirror showing them what you were. And nothing is measuring up, not because other people are bad or inadequate, but because what you offered was specific, intentional, and rare. You loved them in their language. You cared about them in ways that touched the tender places they don't show most people. Here's what this means. When someone starts unconsciously using you as the standard for how they want to be loved, that's not casual nostalgia. That's their heart recognizing what authentic love felt like. That's them realizing they had a custom fit and they've been trying to squeeze into off the rack ever since. It doesn't work the same way. I've seen this pattern dozens of times, and here's what I know. This kind of realization doesn't come cheap. It comes through experience, through comparison, through the uncomfortable awareness that they downgraded when they thought they were just moving on. And while it's painful for them, it's also necessary. Because this is how people learn to value what's real. This is how they grow. This is how transformation begins. For some of you, I sense this person has actually tried to reach out in small ways, a like on a post, a "how are you" text, an indirect message through a mutual friend. They're testing the waters, trying to see if there's still an opening. Pay attention to those small gestures. They're not random. If you're still with me, your spirit knows something is shifting. Let me show you what's happening in their emotional world that they're not even fully aware of yet. The emotions they're experiencing right now aren't simple or clean. It's a complex tangle. Regret mixed with longing, mixed with pride, mixed with fear, mixed with hope, mixed with shame. Some days they're angry at themselves. How did I not see what I had? Other days they're defensive. It wasn't all my fault. There were reasons. And still other days they're just sad. Quietly, deeply sad about what's been lost. Let me describe the internal conflict. Part of them wants to reach out to you, to tell you they see it now, to ask if there's any possibility of trying again. But another part is terrified. Terrified you've moved on, terrified you'll reject them, terrified of being vulnerable about how wrong they were. So they're stuck in this middle space, feeling everything but doing nothing, hoping somehow you'll sense what they're going through and make the first move so they don't have to risk the rejection. On Tuesday morning, they almost texted you. They typed out a message, probably deleted it 3 times, rewrote it, stared at it, and then closed the app without sending. On Friday night, they drove past the place you used to go together, and they slowed down, and something in their chest physically hurt. On Sunday afternoon, they were with friends, laughing at something, and mid-laugh they thought of you, and felt guilty for having a good time without you. Like they didn't deserve to be happy when they're the reason you're not in their life anymore. This tension they're feeling. It's actually important. Here's why. Discomfort is often the catalyst for change. As long as they were comfortable in their decision, as long as they weren't feeling the weight of your absence, nothing would shift. But this discomfort, this restlessness, this regret, this longing, this is their heart pushing them toward growth, toward honesty, toward a different level of maturity. I know it's hard to watch someone you love work through their own messy process. It's hard to know they're struggling and not be able to fix it for them. But here's the truth. This internal struggle is often what makes a breakthrough real when it finally comes. If it came too easy, if they didn't have to wrestle with it, the change wouldn't stick. The lesson wouldn't land. They'd repeat the same pattern. Okay, pause. Because some of you need to hear this. You didn't lose them because you weren't enough. They lost you because they weren't ready. There's a profound difference. Let me say it again. You were enough. What they couldn't hold on to says everything about where they were, not about what you lacked. On a spiritual level, there's something deeper at work here. What's unfolding isn't just emotional or psychological. There's a spiritual dimension to this shift. I believe some connections touch soul-level places, and when those connections are disrupted, the impact reverberates through layers we can't always see or name. For some of you, I sense you've been praying for this person. Maybe not eloquent prayers, maybe just God, if this is meant to be, or please help them see, or even just holding them in your heart with hope when you couldn't find words. Those prayers, they don't evaporate. They're working in the unseen places. What you're witnessing in this shift, this realization they're having, that's evidence of movement. That's evidence that what you released into the spiritual atmosphere is doing something. There's an ancient wisdom that says he has made everything beautiful in its time. I think about that when I see situations like yours, because timing is so much of this. The beautiful thing isn't always ready when we want it. Sometimes there's a season of preparation, not just for them, but for you too. Sometimes both people need to become who they need to be before the relationship can become what it's meant to be. I don't know if this reconnection is part of your story or if the closure and peace is what's coming. But I do know this. The spiritual growth that's happening in both of you through this season is purposeful. You're learning things about yourself, about your worth, about your boundaries, about what you will and won't accept. They're learning things about themselves, about what real love looks like, about what they took for granted, about what they actually want. And whether this leads to restoration or release, the transformation happening is valuable. It's not wasted. Even the hard seasons teach us something we needed to learn. For those of you who sense this is a divinely connected situation, trust that the same force that brought you together is capable of bringing you back together, if that's what's meant to be. And trust that the same wisdom that allowed the separation knows what needs to happen before reunion is healthy. Now here's where it gets really interesting and hopeful, because there's an aspect to this situation that most people completely miss. So where is all of this heading? I can't promise you specifics. I'm not going to sit here and tell you definitively that they're coming back or that you'll have this fairy tale reunion. But I can tell you what I've seen unfold when this pattern continues. Sometimes this realization they're having leads to them actually reaching out. Not with a casual hey text, but with real vulnerability. With I've been thinking about us, or I realize I messed up, or can we talk? And when that happens from this place of genuine realization, it's different than before. There's humility, there's awareness, there's readiness for something real. Other times, this realization leads to closure for both of you. They come to understand what you meant to them, which helps them grow and shows them what they want in the future. And you get confirmation that your love was real and valuable, which helps you release them without bitterness. Sometimes the gift isn't the relationship, it's the mutual growth and the clean closure. But here's the common thread in both scenarios. What's happening right now is moving both of you forward. Even if it doesn't feel like forward, even if it feels like you're stuck in this waiting space, trust me, there's movement. Hearts are changing. Perspectives are shifting. Growth is happening. I've seen situations where someone has this exact realization about their person and 6 months later they're married. I've also seen situations where someone has this realization, reaches out, and the person who was waiting realizes, actually, I've grown too much to go back to what we had. Both outcomes led to beautiful places, just different places. Here's what I want you to hear. Whether this leads to restoration or to you finding something even better with someone else, what's unfolding right now matters. They're learning to value what they had. You're learning to value yourself. That's never wasted. That's never pointless. That's the foundation for whatever comes next. And for some of you, I sense the outcome is closer than you think. Not because they're finally ready, but because you are. And that changes everything. Stay with me. What I'm about to share next is the piece that ties everything together. This is where clarity comes, and this is where you'll understand why I titled this video the way I did. Here's what I promised you at the beginning. This is the revelation that changes everything, while they're finally realizing what you meant to them. Here's what's changed in you. You've realized what you mean to yourself. Let me say that again, because this is the core of everything. They're having an awakening about your value. But you've already had an awakening about your own value. And that shift in you, that changes the entire dynamic. When they walked away, or when things fell apart, you probably felt like you were losing your footing. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were enough, if you'd done something wrong, if you could have tried harder. You went through the devastating process of watching someone choose not to choose you. And in that season, something had to break open in you. But here's what happened in that breaking. You found yourself. Not the version of you that was attached to them, not the version that needed their validation to feel valuable, not the version that was willing to shrink or perform or prove. You found the core you, the you that existed before them and will exist after them, the you that is whole and worthy and enough exactly as you are. While they've been realizing what you meant to them, you've been realizing what you mean to the universe, what you offer, what you deserve, what you will and will not accept. You've been developing standards, building boundaries, learning to honor yourself in ways you didn't before. And that version of you, that's not the same person they remember. Here's what this means. If they do come back, they're not coming back to who you were. They're encountering who you've become. And who you've become doesn't need them the way the old you did. Who you've become isn't waiting for them to validate your worth. You've done that work yourself. Who you've become has options, has clarity, has peace that doesn't depend on their presence or absence. This is the game changer, beloved, because what they're hoping to return to doesn't exist anymore. That relationship, gone. That dynamic, outgrown. That version of you that was available at any cost, she evolved. He leveled up. That person transformed. And here's the beautiful, powerful truth. You're no longer in a position where you need them to see your value. You've already seen it yourself. So if they do come back, it's not a rescue. It's not them finally giving you what you were desperate for. It's them being invited into a new season with a new version of you. If they're ready for it, if they've done their work, if they can meet you where you are now. But if they don't come back, or if they come back not ready for this new level, you're not devastated. You're not destroyed, because your wholeness isn't tied to their choice anymore. That's the shift. That's what's changed in you. And that shift is what makes you powerful in this moment. Why is this the core truth? Because the entire dynamic of your situation hinged on an imbalance. You knew your value to them, but somewhere along the way, you forgot your value to yourself. You were so focused on proving yourself worthy of their love that you stopped requiring they prove themselves worthy of yours. But now you've remembered. You've reclaimed your sense of self. You've rebuilt your foundation on something more solid than their approval. And that changes everything about how this situation can unfold. This explains their behavior in a new light. The reason they're feeling your absence so heavily now isn't just because you're gone. It's because the energy has shifted. When you were chasing, when you were available, when you were proving, there was an energetic dynamic of pursuit. But now that you've stepped back into your own power, now that you're no longer energetically reaching for them, they feel it. They sense the shift, even if they can't name it. What this means for you going forward, you're no longer operating from a place of lack. You're no longer moving through this situation asking, will they choose me? You're asking, do I choose them? You're no longer wondering if you're enough for them. You're discerning if they're ready for you. That's a completely different posture. That's a completely different level of consciousness. And here's what this changes about everything. The outcome no longer determines your worth. If they come back and they're ready, great. You'll evaluate if that's what you want. If they come back and they're not ready, you have the clarity to recognize that and the strength to choose yourself. If they don't come back at all, you're already whole. You're already valuable. You're already moving forward into your next chapter. You're not the same person they remember. You're not even the person you were 3 months ago. You've been in the fire, and what's emerged is refined, clearer, stronger, more aligned with who you actually are. They're waking up to what you meant to them. But beloved, you've already awakened to what you mean. Period. And that's the real victory here, everything I've shared so far. It all leads to this next part. And this is what most people miss when they're in the middle of a situation like yours. This is why you've been feeling the specific emotions you've been feeling. That restlessness? That's not anxiety. That's your spirit adjusting to a new level of awareness. You're not the same person, so your spirit is calibrating to this new version of you. It feels unsettling because growth is unsettling. But it's not bad. It's transformation, that peace that comes and goes. That's you touching into your true self, then losing connection with it, then touching back into it again. The more you practice staying connected to who you've become, the more sustained that peace will be. But give yourself grace in the moments when old patterns of thought try to resurface. You're rewiring years of conditioning. That doesn't happen overnight. That pull you feel toward them, but also the resistance. That's healthy discernment developing. Part of you still loves them, still hopes for the best, still wonders what could be. But another part of you is saying, not at any cost. Not if it means losing myself again. Not if it means going backwards. That tension between love and wisdom. That's growth. That's you holding complexity. That's maturity. And that sense that something is different even though externally nothing has changed. You're absolutely right. Something is different. You're different. And even if they haven't reached out yet, even if nothing has happened in the physical realm, the shift in you creates a ripple effect. Energy doesn't lie. Consciousness doesn't hide. When you change, the entire dynamic changes, whether anyone acknowledges it verbally or not. Your spirit has been picking up on this shift, even when your mind was trying to make sense of it. Those moments when you suddenly felt lighter for no reason. That was you releasing an old story. Those moments when you felt unexpectedly sad, even though you were doing fine. That was you grieving who you used to be, so you could make space for who you're becoming. Those moments when you felt strangely certain about your future, even though you have no idea what it looks like. That's you trusting your inner, knowing over your external circumstances. Everything you've been feeling has been preparing you for this moment of understanding that the real transformation wasn't in getting them to see you differently. It was in you seeing yourself differently. Now that you understand what's happening, let me show you what to do with this information. Because awareness without application just leaves you stuck in your head. I want to speak to some specific groups watching right now, because I sense different seasons represented here. For those of you who've been waiting for movement, I sense your season of waiting is shifting. Not necessarily into the season you expected, but into a season of clarity. You're about to get information you didn't have before. You're about to see things from a perspective you couldn't access before. And that clarity is going to empower you to make decisions from wisdom instead of hope. The waiting wasn't pointless. It was preparation. For those of you who've been praying consistently over this situation, your prayers have been heard and they've been working in the unseen places. What you're witnessing in this shift in them and in yourself is evidence of spiritual movement. Don't give up now. Don't assume because it hasn't manifested the way you imagined that it's not unfolding perfectly. Stay in prayer. Stay in trust. Stay in alignment with your own growth. The breakthrough you've been asking for might look different than you pictured, but it's coming. For those of you who've been hurting deeply, who've felt like you were in a dark valley, I see you. I see the tears you've cried when no one was watching. I see the nights you couldn't sleep because your heart felt too heavy. I see the days you had to force yourself to function because the pain felt like too much. And I'm telling you, the pain has been refining something in you. It's been burning away everything that wasn't truly you. It's been stripping away the false beliefs about your worth, the unhealthy patterns of relating, the parts of you that were performing instead of being. And what's emerging from this fire is the most authentic version of you. The pain hasn't been for nothing. For those of you who are afraid to hope again, I understand. You've been disappointed before. You've believed things were changing and then nothing happened. You've gotten your hopes up and then had to deal with the crash of disappointment. But let me encourage you, Hoping isn't naive. Hoping is brave. What I'm inviting you into isn't false hope based on wishful thinking. It's grounded hope based on real transformation, your transformation. Hope in who you've become. And that's a safe thing to hope in. Some of you needed this confirmation more than you realized. Let me share something that's going to bring even more peace as we move into the application. Now, I need to be really honest with you. I can't tell you definitively that this ends with them coming back ready for something real. I can't promise you that their realization translates into changed behavior. I can't guarantee that because they're finally seeing what you meant to them. They're suddenly going to show up in the ways you deserved all along. What I can tell you is this. Whatever is unfolding is moving you both toward where you're meant to be. And I know that might sound like a cop-out answer when what you want is certainty about reconciliation. But stay with me here. Sometimes the journey leads you back to each other, but on a completely different level. Two healed people coming together to build something healthy. Sometimes the journey leads you to closure and release, but with peace and gratitude instead of bitterness. Sometimes the journey leads you to someone else entirely, someone who's ready for the version of you that you've become through all of this. All three of those outcomes are beautiful if they're leading you toward wholeness, toward joy, toward a life where you're fully yourself. The only bad outcome is you staying stuck, shrinking yourself, accepting less than you deserve because you're afraid of losing them. Trust me when I tell you, if this reconnection is meant to happen, it will. And it'll happen when you're both ready for what it requires. But if it's not meant to happen, something better is. Something aligned with who you've become. Something that honors your growth. Something that doesn't require you to go backwards to move forward. Your job isn't to control the outcome. Your job is to stay aligned with your own evolution and trust that the right outcome will find you. So now the question becomes, what do you do while this unfolds? That's what we're walking through next. What I'm about to share isn't instruction on how to make them come back. It's guidance on how to move through this season with integrity, wisdom, and alignment with your own growth. These are, while this is unfolding, principles, not manipulation tactics, not strategy, not games. Just truth about how to honor yourself while they work through their process. While they're going through their realization process, your primary job is to maintain your own peace. Not fake peace, real peace. The kind that comes from being grounded in who you are, regardless of what they're doing or not doing. Here's what that looks like practically. You're creating a life you genuinely enjoy, not a life you're using as a distraction. You're building routines that nourish you. Maybe that's morning walks, journaling, time with friends who fill you up, creative projects that engage you, spiritual practices that center you. You're not performing happiness for their potential benefit. You're actually cultivating contentment. When you see their name pop up on your phone, whether it's a text, a social media notification, or a message through a friend, instead of immediately reacting with anxiety or excitement or anger, you pause. You breathe. You check in with yourself first. How do I actually feel about hearing from them right now? What do I need in this moment? Am I in a place to engage with this healthily? When you're tempted to check their social media at 2 a.m., you catch yourself and ask, is this going to bring me peace or disturb my peace? And if the honest answer is disturb, you choose yourself. You put the phone down. You pick up a book or turn on something that soothes you or text a friend who gets it. This isn't about being strategic to win them back. This is about genuinely becoming the person who doesn't need them to come back to be okay. And here's the interesting thing. When you actually become that person, when it's not performance but reality, that's often when things shift. Because you're no longer energetically grasping. You're no longer operating from lack. You're full. And that fullness is magnetic. We're almost there. Let me tie this all together with what matters most. I know waiting is excruciating. I know you want clarity now. You want to know if they're coming back, when they're coming back, what you should do to speed this up. But beloved, forced timing breaks what's being built. What's unfolding has its own rhythm, its own pace, its own timeline. And our job isn't to rush it, it's to trust it. Here's what I've noticed. When someone is going through a genuine shift in how they see you and a genuine realization about what you meant to them, it has stages. First comes the awareness. Oh, I miss them. Then comes the realization. Wait, what we had was different. Then comes the wrestling. What do I do with this information? Then comes the decision. Am I going to act on this or let it go? And finally comes the action, or the acceptance. You can't skip stages. You can't microwave a process that requires slow cooking. If they reach out before they've done the internal work, before they've wrestled with themselves, before they've genuinely transformed, it won't stick. It'll be the same patterns with different packaging, so your role isn't to speed up their process. It's to stay aligned with your own, to trust that if this is meant to reconnect, it will happen when you're both ready, not just when they're ready. Not just when you're desperate enough to accept anything, but when there's genuine readiness on both sides for something healthy. I sense for some of you, the timing is closer than you think. You're in the final stages of your own preparation, and they're in the final stages of theirs, and there's going to be a convergence moment. For others, there's still refinement happening. Either way, the timing is perfect for what needs to happen. Trust that, even when it feels slow. Even when it feels like nothing is moving, trust the timing. While this unfolds, there will be signs that things are moving. Not the obvious, they texted saying they want me back kind, but subtle indicators that the shift is real and progressing. Let me tell you what to watch for. Sign 1, they start appearing in spaces where you are. Not stalking, but suddenly they're at that coffee shop you frequent, or they're at a mutual friends event they normally wouldn't attend, or they're commenting on posts in group chats. That's not coincidence. That's them creating opportunities for proximity without having to be direct about it. It means they're thinking about you and trying to gauge where you are. Sign 2, you hear through mutual friends that they've been asking about you. Not are they dating anyone type questions necessarily, but how are they doing, or have you talked to them lately, or even just bringing you up in conversation unprompted. When someone can't stop mentioning you, even in contexts where it's not necessary, that's you living rent-free in their head. Sign 3. They reach out with something low stakes, a meme that reminded them of you. Hey, random question about that thing we used to talk about. I saw this and thought of you. These breadcrumb messages aren't just friendly, they're testing. They're checking if you're still receptive, if there's still warmth there, if there's an opening for more. When you notice these signs, here's what you do. You observe without overanalyzing. You stay warm but boundaried. You don't jump at breadcrumbs like they're a feast. You respond authentically. If you genuinely want to engage, you do. If you're not in a place to, you don't. But you don't play games, and you don't perform indifference, you don't feel or availability you're not ready for. The signs tell you the shift is real, but they don't tell you the outcome. Stay grounded in that truth. Here's what most people don't think about while they're waiting and hoping. What if this shift does lead to them coming back? What if they do reach out with genuine awareness and readiness? Are you ready for that? Have you done your own work? Have you looked at the patterns in the relationship that weren't healthy? Have you identified where your boundaries were weak? Have you healed the places in you that were willing to accept less than you deserved? Have you grown into someone who can communicate needs clearly, who can hold space for hard conversations, who can recognize red flags early? Because here's the thing. If they come back and you haven't done your work, you'll recreate the same dynamic. Different day, same pattern. The reunion won't last because the foundation isn't any different than it was before. This season isn't just about them changing. It's about you transforming into who you need to be for what's next. Whether what's next includes them or not, the work is the same. You need to become whole in yourself. Clear about your standards. Confident in your worth. Capable of choosing yourself even when love is on the table. So while you're waiting, while this unfolds, use the time intentionally. Go to therapy if you need to. Journal through your patterns. Have the hard conversations with yourself about what you tolerated that you shouldn't have. Read the books, listen to the podcasts, talk to the mentor or friend who tells you truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Prepare your heart for every possible outcome. If they come back ready, you want to be ready too. If they don't come back, you want to be whole anyway. Either way, the preparation isn't wasted. If you've stayed with me this long, there's something in your spirit that knows this message was for you. Here's what to hold on to as we close out. The healthiest posture you can hold right now is this. I'm open to restoration if it's healthy and right. I'm open to release if it's better for my growth. I trust that whatever unfolds is leading me toward my highest good. I know that might sound like you're giving up or settling for ambiguity when what you want is certainty about getting them back. But this isn't giving up. This is surrendering control. And there's profound power in that surrender. When you're attached to only one outcome, them coming back, you give all your power away. Your peace depends on their choice. Your happiness hinges on their realization. Your future is in their hands. That's a powerless position. But when you open yourself to multiple possibilities, when you trust that you'll be okay, regardless of which path unfolds, you take your power back. Your peace comes from within. Your happiness is your responsibility. Your future is in your hands, and in the hands of something bigger than both of you. Here's what staying open looks like. When they do reach out, if they do, you don't immediately say yes to everything. You evaluate. You ask questions. You pay attention to whether their words match their actions. You notice if they've actually changed or if they're just lonely. You check in with yourself about whether this feels aligned with who you've become, and if what they're offering isn't healthy. If it's the same patterns with better packaging, if it's breadcrumbs instead of a full meal, you have the strength to say, I appreciate you reaching out, but I've grown too much to go back to what we had. If you're ready for something different, something real, we can talk. But I'm not available for the old dynamic anymore. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's self-respect. That's you honoring the transformation you've gone through. Now, let me be clear about red flags versus green flags as this unfolds. Because it matters. Healthy signs that this shift is genuine. They take accountability for their part in what went wrong. Not just surface-level sorry, but actual understanding of impact. They've done visible work on themselves. Therapy, personal growth, changed behaviors in other relationships. They respect your boundaries and your pace, not pushing for immediate reconciliation. They're consistent in their communication, not just reaching out when they're lonely or nostalgic. They ask questions about who you are now, not just reminiscing about who you were then. Red flags that this isn't actually transformation. They're love-bombing, intense attention, grand gestures, but no substance or changed behavior they're giving you, just enough to keep you hoping, but not enough to actually commit. They're defensive when you bring up past patterns, making excuses or blaming external circumstances. They want you back on their terms, their timeline, their comfort level without considering yours. They haven't done any real work on the issues that caused the disconnection in the first place. If you're seeing green flags, move forward with cautious hope and clear boundaries. If you're seeing red flags, beloved, that's not divine restoration. That's manipulation. And you deserve so much better than that. Final thoughts as we close. This is what I want you to remember, walking away from our time together today. The person you've been carrying in your heart is experiencing a profound shift right now. They're realizing what you meant to them, not in a casual I miss you way, but in a bone-deep, can't escape it, measuring everything against you kind of way. This is happening because they needed the contrast. They needed the distance. They needed to experience life without you, to understand what they had with you. What this means is that something real is moving. Whether it leads to restoration or closure, transformation is happening. In them, in you, in the dynamic between you. And while they're waking up to what you meant to them, you've already awakened to what you mean, period. To yourself, to the universe, to your own story. And that shift in you, that's the real game changer. If you felt seen through this message, If specific things I said made your spirit leap, if you've been nodding along thinking, yes, that's exactly what I've been feeling, beloved, that's because this is your story. What I've described isn't generic. It's not horoscope vague content that could apply to anyone. This is what's actually unfolding in your specific situation right now, your spirit recognizing truth in these words. That's confirmation. You're not imagining this shift. You're not making it up because you're desperate or delusional. You're picking up on real movement that's happening in the spiritual realm before it manifests in the natural. Trust what you've been sensing. Trust your intuition. Trust that you're being guided through this season with more wisdom than you realize. Now, I need to close with this because I care about you too much to leave you with false hope. I cannot promise you that they're definitely coming back. I cannot guarantee that this realization they're having translates into them showing up ready for something real. I cannot tell you with certainty that this story ends with the reunion you've been hoping for, but here's what I can promise you. Something is shifting. Something is changing. And whether that change leads to them coming back transformed, or to you finding closure and peace, or to you meeting someone else who's actually ready for the version of you that you've become, it's leading you somewhere better than where you've been. Growth is happening in their awareness, in your consciousness, in the entire dynamic. And that growth is never wasted. It's never pointless. It's never for nothing. Even if the outcome looks different than you imagined, the transformation you've undergone through this season is valuable. You're not the same person you were when this started. You've been refined, clarified, strengthened, awakened, and that version of you, she's ready for something beautiful. He's prepared for something real, whether that includes this person or someone even better suited for who you've become. For everyone watching right now, I want to speak this over you as we close. May you have peace in the waiting, not anxious peace, but grounded peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. May you have clarity in the confusion, the ability to see through surface circumstances to the deeper truth of what's unfolding. May you trust the process even when you can't see the outcome, even when it feels like nothing is moving, even when doubt tries to creep in. May you grow through this season, not just go through it. May you emerge from this fire refined, not burned, strengthened, not broken, clearer about who you are and what you deserve, and may you discover, whether this person is part of your future or not, that you are being led somewhere beautiful. Your story isn't over. Some of the best chapters are still being written. The love you're meant to experience is still finding its way to you. And you, beloved, are worthy of every good thing that's coming. You're not alone in this. You're held, you're seen, you're guided, and you're going to be more than okay. If this message resonated deeply, if something in you said, "This was for me," subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking this journey together. I'm here creating content to help you navigate these real, messy, beautiful situations with wisdom, hope, and spiritual awareness. And please, drop a comment below. Let me know, did this confirm something you've been sensing? Has this shift been happening in your situation? Share your story if you feel comfortable. You'd be amazed how many people need to hear that they're not alone in what they're experiencing. This community is here for you. I'll see you in the next video, beloved. Until then, here's what I want you to hold on to. Keep your peace. Trust the timing. Stay open to what's unfolding. Watch for the signs without obsessing over them. Do your own work while they do theirs. And remember, you are worthy of a love that doesn't make you question your worth. You are deserving of someone who sees you clearly and chooses you consistently. Be so gentle with yourself during this season. The shift is happening in them, in you, in the entire situation. And no matter what, you're going to be more than okay. You're going to be whole. You're going to be free. And you're going to be loved the way you deserve. See you soon.